Don't try to navigate the entertainment industry alone. The other side is protected, and so should you. So before you sign that contract or broker that deal, call me, Eldonie Mason of Mason Firm LLC, protecting you, your interests, your rights.
Presenter at a recent financial workshop raised some points about handling finances which approach the issue from a unique perspective. Following his session with the workshop attendees, our news team asked the presenter to expand further on his suggestions. Financial advisor Terrance Martin says he believes that it's time for Black people to move away from what he considers to be the taboo around money.
We don't talk about money in our culture, and you would like to say it's a Caribbean thing. I think it's a Black thing. I think it's residual from slavery. We say we never had anything, so we don't need to get anything. If we have conversations, for example, we don't like to leave inheritances on average. We think life insurance is for us and not our heirs and dependents. So our framework is for us, not for who comes after us and who comes before us. So we need to talk more about money. We need to introduce these conversations very early on, put them in math problems in elementary school, so people start to think about this over time, right? And then you could actually have a change.
He says this reluctance to speak about money can impact an individual's financial life as it relates to decisions such as investing or taking loans.
We're afraid to ask. If you don't understand something, just ask why. Why is this the interest rate? Why is this my terms? Why are my payments only going to interest? We need to not be afraid to have these conversations, and the institution should be willingly able to disclose this information to us. And then we have this fear of taking risk. We have this fear of failure. The fear of failure is part of the reality of it. It takes risk for you to make a return. When you think of the world's richest people, they did things that at the time people thought they were crazy. We need to take financial risk, and we need to talk. We need to talk. We need to plan better. We need to know what our financial goals are. What are you working towards?
Martin also says that although financial seminars and workshops are important, they should always be delivered from a context which is both relevant and relatable to us as a people.
A lot of times when we talk about finances, especially when it's a facilitator from the US or Europe, they just look at it from their perspective, assuming that's relevant here, and in many cases it's not. Our systems are not the same.
The Financial Adulting Workshop was hosted at Point Seraphine last weekend. It focused on helping St. Lucians cultivate a mindset which is conducive to creating healthier financial practices. For Choice News Now, I'm Annie Mathur reporting.
All right. Such a pleasure and honor to have you guys with me today. And this is my other more of my series, Lights.Camera.Safety. And my focus on this is that a lot of us in filmmakers, that we need to get a lot more understanding about the business. And since it's, of course, it's COVID, and we need basically additional push in how we can go about doing our work and also have our stuff protected. So I have Miss Mason, and I also have Dr. Martin. So I'm going to ask Miss Mason, you can start to give us an overview of who you are and what you do, and after which Dr. Martin will follow.
Okay, so I am originally from Antigua, born and raised. I left home at, oh my gosh, it's been a minute now, at 18 to pursue my dream of becoming a lawyer in America. And so I left home. I've been back to visit, but I've never been back to live permanently. It's been a journey. Went to PM, A-levels, finished, came here, did my undergrad in about 2.5 years at New Jersey City University in Jersey City. Then I went to Miami for law school at the University of Miami School of Law. Got out of law school in 2005, so I just dated myself. It's been a minute. I've been a lawyer now for about 15 years. Wow, seems to be 16. When I got out, I started out as a litigator, But while I was in law school, I discovered entertainment law. And entertainment law was the thing for me. I thought it was completely fascinating that lawyers were able to get paid to sit around and watch movies, listen to music, read books. It was just a point of fascination that I needed to be part of that. Coming out of law school, that didn't happen right away. I was a litigator in South Florida, going to court, suing insurance companies, doing personal injury, just really killing my soul of every creativity. And I had to get out. And at the time, South Florida didn't really have a big entertainment scene. It does now because they're trying to tap the Latin market. But back then, they didn't even have a sound stage to finish a movie. So I had to hightail it out of there. And it was either go to California or come back to New Jersey. But my sister was in undergrad, getting her degree as a radiologist technologist. So I came back to Jersey just to, provide her with some support. And New Jersey is close to New York. Right. And I just had the dubious distinction of quitting my job right when everything was kind of constricting, and then the recession hit. And so market was already constricting. So in 2007, I ventured out on my own and started my own practice, which is the stuff you see behind me. I started my own practice to really dive into entertainment and everything entertainment, be it music, film, TV, fashion, it didn't matter. I used to say, while it shakes on entertainment purpose, we will rep it. And I started out with exact energy and started my practice, and it wasn't easy going because everybody wants to be in entertainment, but not everybody has the wherewithal and just the drive to go through with it, because it's not an easy industry to break or be in, and everybody wants to be on top. Everybody wants to be a star. It doesn't happen overnight. So I've been at it now for going on 13 years in the industry, and went out from having no clients and no connections in the industry to have represented a bunch of people. Became a member of the Recording Academy, the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, New York Women in Film and Television. It goes on and on. This past spring for us, which is between February and May, I was teaching music, publishing, licensing, and copyright to a college at York College of Pennsylvania. So I had, taken that dream of leaving home in Antigua to say, go to America and become a lawyer, did it, done it, and then, went on to say, well, I want to be an entertainment lawyer, and did that too. So here we are. And on a side note, I did go back to litigation. I still do litigate now, but now I kind of litigate at a higher level and just litigate for one of the biggest companies in the world. And I'm not going to call the name, but you could figure it out by me saying that. And that's cool. And so I do litigation still, but only for that one company. So that's pretty much about me in a little nutshell. There's more, but you can ask me questions.
All right, Dr. Martin, what about you? That's a good one.
Well, I'm from St. Kitts and Nevis, and I moved to the US in 2005, did a bachelor's in economics, graduated in 2 years, decided to do an MBA, graduated during the recession, and had the decision to make, because, navigating the job market at that point was extremely difficult. And basically there were no jobs. And as a foreign national in America, it was that much harder. Because you had not blue collar, you had more corporate type layoffs at that point compared to what's happening now with COVID. So, Americans were much cheaper, and how the law is written, you have to pay international students more. Eventually decided to go back to school, but I had the decision to make: do I go to corporate finance, or do I go more of the financial planning and work with households and small business? So I decided that I hated Wall Street after what I went through in 2008, and I went to Texas Tech. So I'm repping Texas Tech. They had the best program in the country at the time. I still do actually. Graduated in 2013. Then I moved to South Texas, right on the U.S.-Mexico border. And I did a lot of work in, financial education. So I'm not directly related in film like our other panelists, but finance is finance in many regards. The decisions are the same. But I look forward to participating. I'm now in Utah. I left South Texas. I'm now in Utah. But I still very much, I'm active back home. I do public speaking. I had a wealth management firm where I was managing like $10 to $20 million. And that was more part-time than anything else. So thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I'm going to ask my questions, okay? I'm going to ask as if I don't know, I kind of know, okay-ish know, and I know. I'm asking, I'm going to ask it in all levels, okay? So Eldonie, Miss Mason, let me correct myself. Let me ask you this question.
Sure.
What is the best legal name we in the art should have our company registered? Should it be Inc. Limited, or you got LLC or GPC, or you have all those TTT? What's the best way should we as filmmakers register our company, and why?
Okay, so when you say legal name, I'm just going to do some technical corrections on that, right? Because at first when you said legal name, I'm thinking, okay, you're talking about what name should you give your business? And if that's the case, then we're talking about trademark and branding, and how you name your business is going to depend on what's out there. And you got to be careful about infringing people's rights in their brand. Now, when you say GP, this at the end, you're talking about the corporate entity. So that's why the distinction we're going to be making here right now. At first, we have the name of the company, and then we have the type of entity. So I think what you're getting at is the type of entity, and we could talk about the name too, because they kind of go hand in hand. The name of your company is going to become your brand. The type of entity you have is going to protect you when it comes to legal liability for your acts as a filmmaker. And I've known filmmakers who are out there running around, producing movies, hiring people on set, and don't have a legal entity, which means it opens them to all kind of unlimited liability to be sued directly. So first, let's briefly talk about a name. When you're picking a name for your business, a lot of people sometimes will just go in their own name. Under the U.S. trademark law, your name by itself is just not trademarkable from the get-go, unless you could acquire secondary meaning. The reason they do that is because if you can't prevent other people from using their name on products and goods and service, unless you get to like a fame of McDonald's, and then you're trying to name your restaurant McDonald's instead of burgers, even though that's your last name. So let's get that one straight. But if you're coming up with a name, when you come up with a name for any company, you want to search. You want to search the internet to make sure there's no one else using that name, and you'll be surprised. Sometimes you come up with a name and think, there is no one using this name. This is the greatest name ever. And you run a search and you realize that, hey, other people is using the name. And then it all depends on how they're using that name. Because under trademark law, you could be using a particular name, say on computers, and I could be using it on film, and we both have rights to the name, because trademark rights are territorial and specific to a goods or service, unless you're a famous mark and you can't use Coca-Cola on anything, because their mark is so famous, and it's not unheard of that Coca-Cola might decide to tap into the film industry and have Coca-Cola films. So that's one thing with the name. Now, when you get to the type of corporate entity you want to form, I'm going to tell you what I do for creatives when I form entities for them. A lot of creative people don't know business, don't do business, don't try to learn business, don't want to touch business. I want to create is what I get all the time, every single time. Okay. So for people like that, I always give them an entity that's going to be easier on like the administrative front. So it's not much that by ways of administration, say like an Inc., like a general C Corp, which is what you see at the Inc. at the end, or LTD. Well, it depends on what country you're in, because different countries have different designators at the end of corporations to identify what type of corporate entity they are. And since I'm in the US, I could only I could only speak to the identifiers we have in the US, and I didn't look up the ones in Antigua. And I noticed we have a mixed crowd of people, maybe, seeing kids right over here that's in Utah. I don't know why you're in Utah, but that's great. It's cold, man. I had to go. That's why I had abscond and went to law school in Miami. Because after 2 years in Jersey.
You went back to Jersey.
I know, but Utah gets colder.
No, it actually doesn't.
Really?
It does not. No.
Okay, it's all right. I'm close to New York. Film happened. Yeah, you guys might have Sundance, but
I'm from Vegas, so I'm good with Vegas. I don't care much for New York, so I'm good.
It's New York. Fashion, film, music, TV, Broadway. It has it all. It's all good. I've gotten over the weather. So where I was at. Oh, yes. On the modifiers or corporate entities, right? So you have the limited liability company, which is the LLC. So I'm sure if you look at films or movies being made in the US, you'll see the production company will be the title of the movie, and it will have that LLC on the end. That LLC stands for limited liability company. And in the US, it is the easiest form of company to maintain, because unlike an Inc., which is your regular C Corp, it doesn't have all this thing where you have to have meetings, you got to keep minutes, you have to do all these things and filings and crazy stuff. And in a regular C Corp, there are other reasons too why you don't do it, because there's this thing called a double taxation that in the US, that just a straight C Corp gets double taxed, meaning that owners of a C corporation, which is an Inc., are called shareholders. Those shareholders get taxed when dividends or say profits are distributed to them. But then the corporation itself gets taxed. Yes, you could be a single member owner Inc. That means I could have a corporation and be the sole shareholder, the director, the manager, the president, the everybody, wearing all my multiple hats. However, when my company starts making money and I am paying, even if I'm paying myself a salary, when it comes to profits are paid in dividend. My company will get taxed. And then when the money comes to me as a shareholder, it's getting taxed again, unless I elect to be taxed as an S Corp, and then I could have pass-through taxation. Now, the beauty about an LLC, when you set it up, if you're a single member owner, the IRS will, which here, Internal Revenue Services, when you're a single member LLC, the IRS will default you to a pass-through entity, a disregarded entity for tax purposes, and all the taxes will pass through from your company to you, so you avoid that double taxation. And later on, when you actually could pay yourself a salary, you could ask the IRS to tax you a certain way, so then you save on payroll taxes, but we're not gonna get into all that. So that company is easier to manage and maintain, because you don't have all this, you don't have all these meetings, the formalities. That's the word I'm looking for. You don't have all the formalities of an Inc. where you have to do meetings and all this stuff and keep minutes. Yes, it's good that when you have an LLC, you do things like that, but you're not mandated to do so. And the LLC gives you the limited liability protection that you will get from a regular C Corp. So what LLCs did is that they blended the great stuff from the C Corp and the great stuff from partnerships, because in partnerships, you pretty much have unlimited liability unless you're an LLP, which is a limited liability partnership. And there's always still a partner is a general partner that is still getting screwed for liability purposes. So an LLC, in terms of film production and being in any artistic endeavor, is your best way to go, because you get that limited liability protection. you are able to structure your taxing on your LLC in such a way to maximize on, you know, like you maximize on the taxes. So you don't get double tax as the C Corp. And when you start making enough money, you could figure out what's a reasonable salary, pay yourself, and so that your company pay your payroll taxes, and then you benefit from just sending profit to yourself. And when you pay yourself profits, you only pay income tax and not payroll tax. So it's a great way to set up, and it's the easiest to manage. So the short answer to your question is an LLC, if you're based here in the US, is what you would need, or the equivalent that's international.
That would be the safest way as well to protect your clients as well. To, for example, if you have an acting studio or you have the actors on set, this is also the safest way to protection as well with them.
Yes, and have insurance, because you don't produce a movie without production insurance. But what the limited liability company does to you is that it protects you from personal liability for the acts of your company, but you have to be maintaining your company in such a way that you maintain its corporate identity. Like, yeah, I just said there's not a bunch of formalities, but yes, I do mean it still has to have its own bank account. You can't just be paying your personal bills out of your company's bank account. You have to like literally pay yourself, then pay your personal bills. You have to manage it as a company in order for you to shelter under the company's limited liability. Because there is a thing in law called piercing the corporate veil, because, you know, lawyers get funky with the terminology. And it means that you could go beyond the corporate identity to get to the owner individually if you don't maintain certain corporate formalities, like opening the bank account, you know, not paying your personal, you know, your rent out of your business bank account, in maintaining that kind of formality.
So here's my question now.
Sure.
But is it going to be a statement then a question? Production companies, particularly low budget filmmakers will typically pay their crew as independent contractors based solely on the fact that it will save them money in payroll taxes and sometimes in workers' compensation insurance as well. Their thought process in doing this is that all my producers are friends, they have done it this way, so it must be okay, and think of how much money I'll save. So based on what you just said, should filmmakers hire independent contractors, that is the below the line crew members? Is this actually a dangerous decision that can get the principal owners, officers of the production companies or project into trouble, not only with the government, but also with their investors?
Okay, so no, because whether or not you're an independent contractor or an employee is like literally a specific legal test. And in the creative space, a lot of people are freelancing. It's not that they're breaking the law, it's just because of the way they're performing the services and the type of service it is. And I will give you a dissertation on the difference between independent contractor and an employee, but generally what they're saying is that, do you have the right of control? And is that a job that can be done independently without you telling the person, like, come here, go there, do this, do that? You know what I mean? Like, can they just do it with you tell them, okay, this is a project I have, I need you to go, you know, okay, work this camera light. All right. You see what I mean? So it's not because they don't have to hire people as an employee. It all depends on what that person is doing. A lot of studios, if you're on a studio like a regular, you're generally being employed by the studio to be on like a sitcom or something, right? But in a lot of these independent films, it all depends on what the person is doing. And you pretty much are paying them, say, okay, I am paying you, you know, $1,000 to do this role. And that's what they're getting. They're not an employee. You're paying them on a 1099, but it's just because of what they're doing. Because even though you're directing the actor, you're not necessarily completely controlling them, because you're not telling them when to study the part, how to, yeah, you're giving them direction, but it's completely different.
Ah, okay, okay. Okay.
Yes,
Yes, go ahead.
If you're just starting out, you really don't want to overextend yourself with a high wage bill, because that just restricts everything that you have, right? So by going the freelance route, independent contractor route, you afford yourself the ability to, you know, get away from things like health insurance and different types of employee benefits but at the same time, what you're doing with the freelance people, if they're structured correctly too, is giving them their own opportunity to be their own business owners, right? And that comes with many tax benefits, as we could go through. So once there's clear communication, I think sometimes going the 1099 route or the independent contractor route, for some businesses may be viewed as a cop-out. It's not really. It's actually a strategic business decision.
Yep.
Okay, because that's what I realized. Some persons kind of look at it as a cop-out itself. Okay. So what is this is to Miss Mason as well again. What is an IP attorney? Is that the same on the entertainment lawyer? I don't know.
Okay. Yes. So IP is intellectual property, and without intellectual property, you don't have entertainment law. So entertainment law is the broad umbrella that encompasses so many things. In entertainment law, you have fashion, you have film, you have music, you have books, you have video games, and it goes on and on. The one thread that keeps that industry ticking is intellectual property, trademark, and copyright. So this is the thing. You have some lawyers that are IP lawyers. They handle trademarks, copyrights, patent. They don't do anything in entertainment. They're just solely IP lawyers, right? Solely IP lawyers. However, entertainment lawyers, we can't, when we're entertainment lawyers, we have to know trademark and copyright law, because copyright is the bedrock foundation on which the entire entertainment industry is built. Without copyright, you'll have no entertainment industry. Copyright is a bundle of rights that gives the author of a creative project the right to like block other people from using their stuff and get paid for a certain number of years. Here in the US, it's life of the author plus 70 years. So what that does is that if when I create a movie, okay, and as the writer of the script, unless they sold the rights to the script, is the owner of the rights to the script. The person who optioned those rights and then make the movie is the owner to the actual movie in the can. Okay. Now, if I, theater person, went off and showed that movie without the necessary license to show that movie, then I could sue the theater for copyright infringement. So yes, entertainment lawyers are IP lawyers, but the truth is not in the reverse. IP lawyers are not necessarily entertainment lawyers, because in order for really truly to call yourself an entertainment lawyer, you have to understand the business of entertainment, of what area, aspect of entertainment you're playing in. So I do music, film, TV, fashion. I made sure I learned those areas really well. So I know the business of film, the business of music, the business of TV, and the business of fashion. A lawyer who does IP and would get, say, a rights acquisition agreement, and they have done copyright law, and they get a rights acquisition agreement, they could look at that contract and it's foreign to them. It could be Greek, because they don't understand how the entertainment business work in terms of film, so they can't advise a client. And I've had that issue happen before. That lawyer let them sign the worst deal possible. That deal was so bad, they didn't even recoup. And they were looking for a distro deal, okay? The thing was in the can. They were bringing it to the network in the can. So they were looking for distribution. This wasn't a co-pub deal. You know, this was not like a co-production deal. This was nothing. The network was putting up no money. They had financed the entire production. They were looking for a distribution deal. The deal they signed did not even give them back their production costs.
Yikes.
That was crazy. And I'm like, who read this? They like, a lawyer read this. I'm like, did this lawyer do entertainment law? No. So when that lawyer looked at that contract, he saw from a contract perspective, it's all good. There was nothing like running afoul of contract law. But from an entertainment law perspective, that contract and business, it sucked bad. You don't do that. You never sign an agreement for a carriage deal where it's in the can and you don't get back at least your production costs plus profits. So that's why you have to make sure you have the right type of lawyer.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Copyright, trademark, patent, right? What's the difference between the three? And the next question as well too. You have photographers as well who are also in the film industry as well. Photos are floating around the world. How do they protect themselves as well too?
Yeah, because I've represented photographers too. Let's talk about the difference, right? So copyright protects your content. This is how the simplistic way I like to put it. Copyright protects content, trademark protects your brand, and patents protect your inventions. It's like literally the simplest way to look at that. So your content is copyright with content. It's your creative content. In America, copyright is automatic. The minute you write it down. So the other day I wrote a poem. Yes, I'm an artistic person myself too. I wrote a poem. I wrote it in my little green, little journal. And my poem, the minute I wrote that down in that journal, got copyright protection instantaneously, because copyright in the US is automatic once it's fixed in a tangible medium. So when it came to me like a vision between sleep and wake, and I didn't want to get up and write it down, at that moment, it had no copyright, because it was just kind of floating around in my mind like an idea, and ideas on the US copyright law is not protected. So say when that came to me like a vision, I called up my friend and say, hey, I was between sleep and wake, and this idea of a poem came to me, and it goes something like this. And I start telling them the idea, right? And they get off the phone with me and they're like, damn, that's a good idea. Let me go write it down. And then they went and wrote it down, like developed my idea and wrote it down. I can't then sue them for copyright infringement because ideas are not protected. And I never wrote the thing down to have it fixed. Okay, this is why I like to tell people in the creative space, you'll hear people go on all the time saying, oh, I have this greatest idea. And I'm like running around telling people their ideas. Okay, yeah, you can tell people your idea, but I hope somewhere you actually had written this down and captured the essence and expressed your idea, because the expression of the idea is protected under copyright law, before you start yakking and telling everybody, and then they took your idea and develop it into their own project. You are not going to win in court. So that's what copyright protects, that content. Now, trademark is going to protect your brand. It's the Mason Firm LLC brand, right? When people hear Mason Firm LLC, based on what dealing with me for the last 13 years of having this company, it's what people come to expect as a certain level of service. It's when you walk into, and I don't even go to McDonald's, but everybody know what McDonald's is. It's just an easy example. The trademark, that Brandon, that when you see the golden arches, you could be driving down a highway, you could be somewhere around the world, you see them golden arches, you know it's McDonald's. That's the trademark. That's the brand. It's the swoosh. You see that swoosh, ooh, Nike. You see that apple that looked like it took a bite out of it, you know that's the Apple line, right? Now with Amazon, you see the little smile on the truck when you're driving down the highway. You don't even have to see the word Amazon. You see their little smile checker thing, and oh, that's Amazon. That's the trademark. That's the branding. So that's what it is. And then patents is invention. It's some new invention of something. That's why you will hear like, oh, there's this new product come out and it will say patent pending. Yeah, it has to be a certain new improvement on some old, it could be a new improvement on an old invention or something completely new.
The thing is, right, that with copyright, we call it the old the old-fashioned way. You write it, you mail it to
I knew that was
yourself.
coming. I knew that was coming. I always wait for that question.
Okay, so you mail it to yourself. You got it. You can't open it because if it open, blah. Can you please explain that to overseas, because you know in the Caribbean we're catching on. Please explain.
Okay, so in the US is an international treaty to the Berne Convention, which is like international copyright law. I don't know if Antigua is, they probably are. But let me just disband that old wives' tale right now. Okay, if you're in the US or if you're in any country that signs on to this Berne Convention I'm telling you about, generally that's not the way copyright works. I don't know how it actually works in Antigua because I think the only time I've been to a law library is back in the day when I was at A-levels doing law. I had to go down there to look something up.
Right.
When I come home, I don't even be bothered. I always toyed with the idea that at some point I'm gonna go to UA and get my law license for Antigua because, you know, we could actually use some halfway decent lawyers that I could actually find when I need something. But I digress. I haven't done that yet. But speaking of how copyright generally works here in the US, as I said, it's automatic. You ain't got to do nothing. You don't have to mail it to yourself. And it's still a misnomer here in this country because people walk up to me and tell me the same thing. When I was teaching my class this spring, I literally had to tell the kids that too, which is crazy. But no, you don't have to mail it to yourself. Here in the US, as I said, my little poem that's sitting in my journal has copyright protection. It didn't go anywhere. I haven't typed it up, put it in an envelope, mailed it to myself. No, my protection is automatic. I have it. If I show someone my poem and then they went and copied my poem and start spreading it on the web, I can sue them for copyright infringement because they didn't have my permission to use my poem. Okay, it is automatic once it's fixed. Here in the US, what you do is that you register your copyright to get additional enhanced protections, but you really don't have to do anything to get a copyright other than taking the idea out your head, expressing that idea in some tangible form, putting it on paper. In terms of my music people out there, that moment you start playing those keys, if you have on your cell phone app that has a recorder and you're recording you playing those keys, that recording just got copyright protection because it's fixed. If you are making little keys and then you're writing out the sheet music, that sheet music is protected. That's how it works.
Okay. Now you mentioned about students, and I'm going to ask Dr. Martin, as a financial professor, what weaknesses do you see from students venturing out into their own entrepreneurship startup business? I mean, listen to what Ms. Mason has mentioned about protecting your business and things like that. Dr. Martin, what do you see as weaknesses that you see students venturing out into their own entrepreneurship startup business?
Okay, so let me first establish that I won't have her energy because I am here with
natural. I hang around way too much entertainment people.
I'm here with a homemade cold brew and it's not kicking how it's kicking, and that's water. Wow. Imagine if she had a
mineral water.
I actually don't drink coffee. I drink herbal tea. I don't drink caffeine.
So you're calm. Okay, awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna go further, and not just students. I think that's too limiting. I think anybody starting a business, I've seen so many mistakes. Yeah. Let me first start also by what really is a business. There's this misunderstanding that monetizing a hobby makes you a business. And I think it makes you a sole proprietor. You make a little money off of a skill, but without leverage, can you truly say you're a business? I don't think so. And most professionals in this space would agree. But one of the biggest mistakes from the get-go is there's no actual market research in many cases, whether or not this is a venture that the audience wants or your market wants. So the market research is limited. There's no sort of what we would call capital budgeting or project evaluation. There's no calculation whether or not, you know, what's this target profit that we're trying to get at. So there's limited groundwork on the finance and accounting side in most cases. I've seen so many people back home in the region, not just Antigua, St. Kitts, but region at large. We tend to have homogeneous products, and we have the same price. It's a clear example of perfect competition. So then what's the distinction? It's popularity. It's not really a true business strategy. It's who knows you in many cases, right? So I think that's part of the struggle. I think that could also be extended to the film and entertainment space. You know, I know people that thought they were going to be great DJs because they like music, right? And they spend all this money on equipment. They go out, they play gigs, it doesn't go well, and they have all this equipment, and it's a sunk cost, right? Oh no, everybody's a music producer. I've seen so many different mistakes out there. And then, you know, in a region as well, let's assume you've done the due diligence, you know your business will be profitable, then there's no protection, there's no copyright. I don't think it's instantaneous in our region. I think you have to go through a process. I think there's an association in I think registered in St. Lucia, but then each island's supposed to have an entity that's supposed to protect your copyright on your work or something like that. That's yeah. What do they call themselves? I don't know. I know they've been making some noise in St. Kitts now, trying to get monies from past events and radio stations and TV stations. They're now trying to help creatives to get what's due to them. So I think there's a next process. So there's generally a lack of education, a lack of the groundwork. But when you do it, sometimes there's failure to copyright your work or selling yourself too short, right? I was speaking to a young lady in the entertainment space, beautiful singer, and this guy with ties to a music group in the UK comes to her and say, hey, you know, we need somebody to sing our song that we just wrote so we could sell it to this big music group in Europe and make a lot of money. How much do you want to get paid? She said 75 EC, right? And he's like,
Please, I came to the camera.
This is a true story.
I have to listen up. Are you kidding me?
This is a true story. 75. And you know what he said to her? And mind you, this is a guy from St. Kitts that had some exposure in this space. He has a writing group that he's a part of. He said to her, well, you could get the exposure. I shouldn't have to be paying you. You get the exposure, right? So you should be thankful for the exposure.
I always hate that.
I don't like it either. I'm the same. I don't like it. I hate it with a passion.
I've had artists like told me that in the beginning, and now they come today with that, and I'm like, I've been a lawyer for 15 years, people. You're new. You have nothing to offer me. I've been to the Grammys.
And then it happens, and then, you know, when she pushes back, I'm on the phone with her, and he's like, oh, you know, but guess what? If they hear it in the room and they like your voice, they just may ask who this is. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
This is a fantasy person. I mean, whoever was speaking to her live in a fantasy world.
But they tell that all the time to people who are trying to break the industry.
Exactly.
That is a common threat. I've seen it. I've heard it. I've been in this business long enough to know back in the day, people used to tell me that. And not to cut you off, Dr. Martin, I'm just interjecting here with saying, because I know these people might, you know, people I've been in the industry with, and I remember starting out, as I said, like when I started in this industry, I was coming from a litigation background to an insurance companies. I had the bulk knowledge of being an entertainment lawyer, but I've never practiced entertainment law. I didn't have any clients. And I remember being in the independent space in New York, and I met a lot of people back then who goes like, oh, you know, if you help us out right now, when I blow up, I'll take care of you. Yes. Lawyers can't tie their clients to them. And a lot of people that did that, and maybe in the first year when I was starting out just trying to meet people, you're like, okay, you know, I'll waive part of my fee, but you're still gonna pay me some. Or back then I used to
free consultations. Ain't
Oh,
not free right now. Like, you got to come with your money.
yeah.
I ain't talk to nobody for free. I mean, I do things like these, but if you got to talk to me, it's an hour and you're paying. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, it's not happening. But back then, I just remember when I was just trying to figure out the industry and getting in, I mean, I didn't let people take crazy advantage of me like that. Because in my mind, I was always like, I'm like, okay, what can I do to leverage with this? And if this person do go off and become whatever they come to become, like, well, that's a former client. And I see them now. And those trifling people will leave your butt behind because people are trifling. And they have very short memories to remember, like, oh, you helped them when they had nothing. And I see a lot of actors that I rep back in the day on TV now. Like, I see them and I have no ill will to them. I know it's like, hey, as a lawyer, I wasn't going to be able to tie them to any contract because of our ethical rules. But now I just look at them, I'm like, yeah, I represent that one, in that one, in that one. I don't care if I'm not representing you now. Guess what? I represented your butt when you were trying to get somewhere. So it's all right because people like that, at the end of the day, in this industry is very unforgiving. And if you like drop the people who had your back when you had nothing, you're going to end up with the people to take you for everything.
Yes.
And then you'll still have nothing.
And I think the comparison here is that you're in a developed market, right? So you can imagine the things that you experience in your first years, the things that are just happening now as our space in the region is developing. So they're still taking that what they did back then and now bringing it and seeing these young women, they're out, they're playing shows here and there. And then they're like, oh, you could sing, you know, but I've heard better, you know, trying to bring them up, then they pull them back down and say, well, let me give you something, or the exposure. So I think selling themselves to short, not investing in their own ability, I would say is a problem. That's a regional problem where we think we're talented and that's enough, but where's the voice coach, where's the acting coach, where's, you know, that consult, where's the legal team, where's the finance person to go over your contracts and things like that. I think that's pervasive. I have a friend of mine and he just had a film on ABFF, right? So the American Black Film Festival. Right?
I know some people would have film in there right now.
So I grew up with this guy. He started with a little camcorder and now he has all his equipment out there and he's doing his thing. And I'm like, how are you monetizing this? You know, one or two music videos a year, you're charging a little $1,000 here or there. That's not enough to pay for your camera, right? You know, or your time. So another part of the thing is that selling yourself short is this whole concept of value in your time. Here's a guy that invested in himself, but yet the market still doesn't want to pay him, right? So because of this whole, oh, we're all in this struggle together. And then there's a lack of unionization in a sense, because when you're developing, you need to have one common head, one common voice in order for you to get anything. And like, for example, in St. Kitts Music Festival, Carnival, etc., we invite these established artists in, we pay them ridiculous sums of money, but the locals, oh yeah,
people.
Just be thankful you could be on the stage.
It's a black people thing, boy. It's a black people thing.
But why is it that they keep saying that? I mean, this I want to venture, I want to make money. Come on, why come with this lame?
But you all are fragmented though, right? What's the, if I'm a promoter, I'm like, for example, I think my friend, that there's now this film scene where they're trying to do more movies in St. Kitts Nevis. One, you're small, right? Your market isn't that great. So you don't really have leverage. What's your leverage? You, in many cases, you take what you could get, because we tend to be very myopic in our focus. We tend to be very short-sighted. Like, we create, but we create for St. Kitts Nevis. We create for Antigua, Barbuda. We need to move beyond that and create for a regional space, right? Maybe on the leewards, and then we expand into the windwards. Or you find a little popular influencer in Trinidad and you invite her to do a cameo, then she promotes you, you break out there, right? We need to be a lot more strategic in how we approach film and entertainment in general. But I find we're very microscopic. We focus on our very small markets, and you can't be successful that way.
Okay. You know, you made a valid point, because I remember the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Brown, he actually said sometime last year, I think it's around carnival time, that the Calypsonians do not make the focus of the music is local and not outside. So there's no money that is making for them. What he was pressing on is that you should think outside of Antigua and Barbuda when you're making your music, you know. So you make a valid point there, because sometimes a lot of persons just thinking small. And one of the things I realized too, when it comes to marketing, that when you approach businesses, there's some persons who like to put in a line to say, you know, if we sponsor you, if you come with us, you're going to have this wide range of exposure, and you'll get this and you get that. But then you're thinking, get this and get that. You're just here. You're not going out there. You know, there was something that I said it to the commissioner of film TNT. I'm going to repeat it here to get your feedback. And this is what it says. Oh, okay. So this is what was said from this is what the gamer. Do not fall for the line. I will not pay you for the product, but will promote you. The gamer said, it's crap, it's a lie. If somebody wants to pay you for your work, if somebody don't want to pay you for your work, they don't value you. And he went on to say, you make more money doing your own promotion. Don't devalue your product. Now, gaming is something that a lot of people love. We love games. If it's not Candy Crush and all the crazy, you know, stuff. Now, if you want to get yourself into getting yourself into a game or into the game industry, into filmmaking or whatever, persons like to completely say, you know what, okay, hand me what you hand me your idea, or hand me what your nice invention or whatever it is, you know, but we'll promote it for free. To me, no, as Miss Mason said, you know, you're starting out, and of course you're thinking, oh my gosh, they like my work and I'm going to get this exposure. But then if anything happens, there's nothing that you can fall back on to say, you know what, I actually did this, I actually did that. You can monetize on that, what you have given to that person freely. I would say freely. Why is it that in the Caribbean, I'm going to be specific, in the Caribbean, we are so quick to give away ourselves because we want in? Why do we like to do that?
Because we're told that's the way to do it, right? We're told that's the way to break out. It actually, you remember growing up, you heard, take little, live long?
Yeah.
Take little, live long. That's the adage, right? And I think one of the problems, let's flip this back on the participants or practitioners in this space going to for marketing, right? You're trying to do a round of fundraising for your film, for your music video, for whatever, your project. And they ask you to communicate your value. What's your value? Because these are businesses. They're in the business of making money. So if I'm going to give you $10,000, what's my return on investment? If I'm going to give you $100,000, what's my return on investment? And a lot of creatives, artists, people in the space, practitioners, they can't communicate the return on investment. So speaking from a business perspective, why would I take my money? Because this isn't a charity, this is a business, okay? Why would I give you my money unless I could get some sort of return? Like, for example, if you're making a film, what's your viewership? How many eyes will see my brand on the screen or see my 30-second, 45-second commercial? How many? And then what does that mean for me in terms of reducing my acquisition cost for a customer? Right? So you have to be able to articulate your value add to that business. That's why a lot of them say, well, we'll go the promotion route. No, it's wrong, right? But we have to take the personal responsibility from the practitioner side as well, right? Because you go through, you do your fundraising, you do all of this, you have this amazing project that you want to do. How do you get the money to finance it? Currently, our options are grants, right? Because there is this isn't, we're developing an industry right? And we're developing an area and we're doing it blindly, like literally in many cases, the blind leading the blind. Like I have some friends. I have more friends in the music space than in the film space, but it's very similar. I asked her one day, but she's in a group. I asked her, why is your manager your manager? Oh, because she know what she's doing. And I was like, okay, did she have a successful career? Did she break out into the industry? What moves have she made that told you or gave you confidence that she could do something for you? And I asked her this after they sang at a funeral. Right? I'm not saying like you knock a gig, right? A gig is a gig, you understand me? But if the best that this woman is bringing to you is a funeral, you understand? And then how do you deal with the conflicts within the group? How can she deal with people? They have issues in many cases. And you know, we get so excited by the little things. Oh, we got to tour. Oh, we got to do a film and we had 1,000 views. Right? No, you have to continuously keep challenging yourself. Okay, what's your short-term goal? What's your medium-term goal, your long-term goal? One thing I would say too, on the to your comment just now, I would encourage our creatives, artists, filmmakers, music makers to have a loss leader in the business terms. Retail does it. Every form of business does it. That free consultation that Ms. Mason talks about, right? It's something to get yourself in the door, but that's not your best. You don't give your best for free, but you give something to get you in the door. You understand what I'm saying? So you run a loss leader, you let them do that. Okay, take that, run with it. But then I have this whole other catalog. You don't give everything for free.
Mm-hmm. So when you say, just put a loss leader as in LOSS?
Yes, LOS. It's something that you're not going to make money on.
Oh, okay.
It's a service you're offering. It's a product you're offering that just gets your name out there. You want people to be talking about you in a sense. Like, for example, if you want to do a full duration movie, 80 minutes, 90 minutes, then have a 15-minute clip that you put out there. Send it to ABS, send it to, media is huge in St. Lucia. Send it to St. Lucia, send it to ZIZ in Nevis, send it to NNC, ZIZ in St. Kitts, NNC Nevis. Distribute it, get it out there, right? Put it on social media. It's your 15-minute film. It's an introduction to your project. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So, I think that's one way. We have to be so much more strategic. This is marketing. We have to always remember the only one that's going to give you something for free, and it's not even free, is a politician, right? It's not even free because you're not expecting not your vote, but your household vote and your household's vote, right? And your side and your this and that. They're expecting about 10, 20 votes from that little donation. And they will always remind you, because you're going to be in their speech, I gave so-and-so down this alley $5,000 towards the project.
Because one of the things that you mentioned about loss leader, my mind actually reflected back on a casting agent, and these kind of persons along the line. So I'm now asking myself, so is a casting agent, manager, a loss leader? I was thinking that that would not be Miss Mason, no.
No. Okay, so I'm going to piggyback on what you said, Dr. Martin, about loss leader, and kind of think about it. And I know what you're saying, and I've heard it said in another kind of phraseology. But one of the thing is, our whole thing was like a lead generator, or you'll hear it go like lead magnet. And there was a minute, and in the business space where they were talking, maybe a few years ago, like everybody was this lead magnet, and it would be something. And I think I created a little pamphlet called, 11 mistakes business owners make and how to fix them now, because I do corporate formation and startup strategies session, advise entertainment people about like how to actually start and run a creative. And I had another little pamphlet I created called the 5 things you need to know before you sample music to keep you from getting sued, right? That's the in the sense, a loss leader, because that's my, you know, I call it legal advice because I'm very finicky about that. It is not legal advice unless you are paying my fee. Get it straight. But it is advice, and what it is like demonstrating my knowledge. And someone who might not know me, that might be their introduction to me to get my foot in the door, because now you read my pamphlet and you realize, hey, I'm a musician and I have no clue about sampling, and I just read your pamphlet and now it's all clear to me about how sampling works. So that's what it is. And there were times in my career that I've done a lot of things to leverage, and I'm piggybacking on what you said again, every single year since I became a lawyer, since I left my job, quit, and I went out on my own, every single year I have done something new, something different to keep improving my skills as a lawyer, be it technically as a lawyer or in the entertainment space, and the leverage. I see someone was asking about what is leverage. Let me tell you from my entertainment space perspective, if you're gonna leverage, and I talk about leverage all the time, and I'm gonna tell you guys how I have been able to leverage things in entertainment over the years to get even more. So when I mentioned earlier in my bio, I'm a member of New York Women in Television, which is a trade group for, as it says, women in film and television. And I hang out in that organization for a minute. And when I was there, I volunteered for the special events committee, because that was the key that through the shows, you know, through the award shows, through the party, and had all entities come in. So I was running around in that particular organization for a while, but then I just didn't stop there. I knew that my whole thing is that I need to be the top of this industry. So I hang out in that organization for a little bit, you know, I paid, quote unquote, paid my dues. I served on committees. I always showed up. I networked. They had events. I was there. I was hustling. But in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this is not where the buck stops. I'm not just going to always be here, but this is where I got my foot in the door. If you notice, the best way to break this industry is to get yourself in a trade group. I don't think the Caribbean have many. They don't. You guys need to start creating one. So you could share space, share ideas, people in, because people will take you seriously. If you form a trade group, it doesn't have to be big. Who knows? Who cares? It just has to be professional, and you act professional. Then you could reach out to the US and say, like, you know, you bring in a speaker like me, or me, I bring in like, I tap my network and I call up my peeps and go to a producer who's been Grammy nominated and say, hey, I'm doing this, you know, I'm doing this Caribbean. They're looking for speakers. You want to hang? It's like when I had my class, I bought in industry leader because I've been in the game long. And when I need a leader that I didn't have, or particularly, I call somebody else I know. I'm like, okay, I need a speaker. Can you get me one? And because we're all rolling in the same industry, they're like, oh yeah, I got a boy that used to do marketing for One Direction, and he did this and this. Let him on the phone. And I'm like, yeah, can you talk to my class? So that's what I'm talking about, right? So that uses that to leverage into this. And then 2 years ago, the Grammys came to New York, right? After years of being in LA and all the flack and all that, they decided that, you know, they needed to be in a New York state of mind for, I think it was their 60th anniversary, and they need to come back where it once was held all the time. And they came back to New York, and I heard the Grammys were coming as soon as they made the announcement. And I said like this, well, I want to go, okay? And yeah, I didn't have any clients at the caliber of would ever get a Grammy nomination. And at the time, I really didn't understand how that whole nomination thing worked anyway. So I'm like, I want to go. How do I become a member? And this is the thing, back to Dr. Martin's point about research and setting goals. So my goal was, shameless as it is, I want to go to the Grammys, right? That was my goal. I need to get there. And then my next set of questions was like, okay, how am I going to get there? And how do you get there? And I'm like, okay, I don't have a client that could may or may not invite me if they got nominated. So I'm like, okay, who hosts the Grammys? The Recording Academy. All right, how do you become a member of the Recording Academy? You see my thought process here after I set my goal? All right, I looked it up. At the time, it was way easier to get in than now. Now people have to nominate you in. And I went on their website, And I read it up and they're like, oh yeah, you got to submit stuff about, at the time it was, if you're an artist, you had to submit your catalog. What they wanted to make sure you weren't just plain musician, but you were actually about the business of being a musician. You're performing, you have a catalog, you're doing things in music, and you're not just coming over to the academy to hang out so you can meet famous people. And so I applied. And for me at the time, I had been leveraging, I think, where you met me when I spoke at that film festival. And then when I spoke there, I had met another guy earlier. And, you know, Emmeline was my client at the time. And I had met another guy on one of her panels a few years back that had invited me to speak at his music business conference. And then I was writing a whole lot of music articles and just always expounding on music. And then I, again, about, you know, lost leader or doing stuff for free when, and I say you do it when you can leverage it and it makes sense to move you forward. You just don't do anything for free just because, right? So I was speaking at music conferences, not getting paid. I hooked up with an NJ Arts, which is an online like arts and media website by a guy who was a arts editor for one of Jersey's major newspaper, and I start writing articles for him that was about entertainment and music. So when I went to the Recording Academy, I took my leverage. I'm like, well, I'm already doing film here with New York Women in Film. I'm with the British Academy. I've spoken at music business conferences. I've written all these music articles, which I attached. You know, I've spoken, you know, talked about different legal issues that affects in music and affects artists, and I applied. And then they accepted me. Actually, it was crazy because I think I did it on a Friday and by Monday I was in the academy. And then my whole thing was like, I wonder if they invite the members. You notice how this goal was like, I was just very tunnel vision about I need to be at the Grammys.
Right.
And then I just remember I went to some of our events. I was going to talk to our chapter president about whether or not they invited members. But before I even got around to it, the invitation came in the mail. And it's like, oh, you know, 60th Grammy celebration, blah, 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 blah. We request your presence. And I was like, bingo, there you go. And that's how I actually ended up at the Grammys, right? So no one invited me. Well, the Academy invited me, but it wasn't a client. I didn't sit around and wait on people. And I think that's a lot happen in entertainment, especially in the Caribbean. We're kind of sitting around, waiting out, hanging out in our island, just waiting, you know, for the savior to come to scoop us up into this American entertainment industry where we could become a star. But what are you doing? Like, how are you perfecting your craft? What are you trying to do to figure out how this thing works? I came into this industry not knowing anybody, had a bunch of book knowledge. And that's the law part, not the business of entertainment. You know what stuff I read, how much books I bought, just to kind of educate myself. But then again, really understanding early how to leverage.